Why did Stalin decide to shoot tens of thousands of people? In 1936, mass meltdowns and arrests of Stalin began over almost the entire top of the Red Army, which peaked in 1937 to 1938. During that period, 3 out of 5 marshals of the Soviet Union were arrested, almost all the top commanders of the Army and Navy, as well as thousands of middle and lower-level officers were shot. Historians point out that the exact number of victims of repression is unknown, but there are such figures from 17,000 to 100,000. But most often dismissal did not mean execution or arrest. The repression particularly affected high-ranking commanders, and the higher the officer's status, the more likely it was that a black funnel would come for him at night. Stalin, convinced of the inevitability of an armed conflict with Germany, considered it necessary to eliminate those whose loyalty he doubted, even at the cost of weakening the military leadership before the war. Well, the constant paranoia was bearing fruit. The mystery of Stalin's repressions, beyond the official version, the traditional explanation of Stalin's repressions, which Comrade Khrushchev revealed at the CPSU Congress, leaves many questions. Why did Stalin, who showed adequacy in foreign policy, act so harshly with his subordinates and with the army of the USSR? This mystery has given rise to alternative theories. One of them involves deliberate deception Stalin, and the other that in the 1930s there was a real struggle for power in the USSR. The version of disinformation became famous in the West and among Russian emigrants after the publication in 1956 of the memoirs of Walter Schellenberg, the former foreign intelligence chief of the Third Reich. However, the authenticity of these memoirs, which were published posthumously, is questionable. Besides, even if they are authentic, there is no guarantee that the author has fully revealed the truth about those years. According to Schellenberg, Hitler masterfully manipulated Stalin by initiating arrests and executions in the Red Army. The Nazi leader allegedly used intelligence channels and even the president of Czechoslovakia, Edward Beneš, to transmit fake documents compromising the Soviet military leadership with ties to German special services. This theory is widely accepted, although the details of the operation vary from source to source. The main thesis remains unchanged. Hitler fooled Stalin, forcing him to behead his army on the eve of the war. Hitler's words at the meeting on July 31, 1940, confirm how beneficial the repression in the Red Army was for the Nazis. He stated, 80% of the command personnel have been destroyed. The Red Army is decapitated, weakened as never before. We need to start the war now, before they have time to prepare new people. Alexander Kolpakidi and Elena Prudnikova, in their book The Double Conspiracy, Stalin and Hitler, Failed Putschs, 2000, offers an unexpected interpretation of events. They hypothesize the existence of parallel conspiracies in the Wehrmacht and the Red Army against Hitler and Stalin, respectively. In their opinion, Tukhachevsky's group coordinated its actions with the German military, planning the overthrow of both dictators in the event of a Soviet-German war. Hitler, passing compromising materials on Tukhachevsky to Stalin, pursued a dual goal. First, he hoped to provoke the German conspirators into reckless actions. Secondly, he sought to weaken the command structure of the Red Army. Interestingly, the authors of this theory do not consider repression to be a factor that weakened the Soviet army. On the contrary, they claim that Stalin got rid of potential traitors who could have staged a coup in 1941, similar to the attempt by German officers on July 20, 1944. The attempted coup against Hitler on July 20, 1944, sparked discussions about a possible similar plot against Stalin in 1937. This idea received an additional impetus after Hitler's famous statements about the correctness of Stalin's actions to eliminate potential traitors in the army. However, the direct analogy between the events of 1944 in Germany and 1937 in the USSR may be erroneous. The fact of a conspiracy against Hitler does not automatically prove the existence of such a plan against Stalin. Nevertheless, the theory of a real conspiracy in the Red Army finds support not only among historical writers, but also among reputable scientists. For example, Professor Sergei Minakov from Oral State University develops this concept in his works. Critics of this theory point to the lack of direct documentary evidence, noting the unreliability of testimony obtained under torture. However, supporters of the conspiracy idea retort, with a high level of secrecy, direct evidence could not remain. In their opinion, the existence of a conspiracy can be judged only by indirect signs. Indirect evidence points to Stalin's well-founded fears about the loyalty of the Red Army High Command in the event of a large-scale conflict. A significant part of the officer corps was promoted by Leon Trotsky during the Civil War, with Mikhail Tukhachevsky at the head. Stalin could only rely on his own appointees, such as Voroshilov, Budyonny, and Timoshenko. Tukhachevsky's group, independent of Stalin and not recognizing his authority, posed a potential threat. In a military crisis, the leader risked losing control of the armed forces. The logic of Stalin's administration in the run-up to World War II required the establishment of full control over this key power institution, even at the cost of temporarily reducing its combat capability. Well, nobody cancelled Stalin's paranoia. If the double conspiracy hypothesis is correct, then maybe it wasn't a bad idea. The simultaneous overthrow of both dictators by the military of the two countries could have prevented tragic pages in the history of both the USSR and Germany. What do you think about this?